while since we've actually caught up. How's Sharesies going? I know that you've had a few challenges in the last years and quite a few wins as well with product releases. How's it all been going?
Yeah, Sharesies is in quite a different place since we caught up last. We've really evolved. When we started, we were an investment platform, and it was all around how do we make investing really easy. And then over time, we've really grown in our ambition towards our mission of creating financial empowerment for everyone, that there's actually so much opportunity in that, and actually wealth is really broad. And so over the last year, we've been able to launch some new products all around the wealth space. So now we've got a savings product as well as a KiwiSaver. We launched a superannuation here in New Zealand. And we've also developed this whole other side to our business around business to business. So, which is not what people think of us, think of when they think of Sharesies. They don't often think of that business side, but by really understanding how we can empower our investor, it also a big part of that is working with companies and helping them really, connect on that shareholder relationship and bring that to life. So that's been a really establishing part of our business, but we've been working with some of New Zealand's top listed companies delivering their staff share schemes. We've developed a powerful tool where they can communicate and see analytics around their investors and who their shareholders are and get to know them a bit more. As well as supporting on capital raises. So we believe now with those two sides working really closely together, that can really, really change what's possible in the wealth space. So that's been happening.
That's really awesome, and quite a big change from moving from the B2C side over to the B2B side. Obviously now you're doing both. How does it feel doing B2B? What are some of the things you've noticed that are different?
Yeah, being in the B2B world is so different from the B2C world, where it's a lot around creating propositions that meet the mass market, and how you market, you think really kind of big scale around how are you going to attract and have the products for these for this entire target market, which can be quite large. In our case, it's huge. We serve New Zealand and Australia, so that potential is really big. And then when you think of the B2B space, we are serving public companies listed on stock exchanges, and we're starting by building that in New Zealand, where there's around 150 that would really benefit from using our tools and services that we create. So it is quite a different model. You really it's more relationship based. You're able to really get in and talk to people about their unique needs. And there's also some more flexibility about how you create the products and services that surround those. So it's fun being in both spaces, because I think for us it does really work together. And because the more we kind of grow in that customer space, we can take those learnings and put that into our B2B offering, and vice versa. So it's been really great to build both of those sides of our business up.
So in terms of having this B2B approach, how has that changed your team structure? Have you set up two different teams to do that? Obviously there's almost this enterprise sales element to Sharesies now. So how has that affected your organizational chart?
Yeah, as our business has grown and as we've started to offer different products and services and broaden out our markets, we have changed how we structure our team and made sure we've got a structure that really supports and serves those different products and also different markets. So how we're structured now, or how we've got, when we first started, we had kind of one product, one audience. And so everyone was kind of working on that one product, serving that one audience. Now we have what we call Invest and Save, which is all of our investing and savings tools. We've got a KiwiSaver business, which is all about managing KiwiSaver. And we've got our company partnerships team, which is all around how we build up this B2B side of our business. And we also have our Australia team as well, who really supports Australia. So that we've kind of structured around that. We call those our business units, and they really are about connecting each product in each market where it's unique. And then those teams are obviously then supported by more kind of hub teams that support all of across those different units.
Yeah, nice. That sounds like a really good approach. And I suppose just coming through to your team in general, one of the things I wanted to talk about today was the Sharesies founding team. You're definitely larger than average, and I know there's currently 3 co-CEO positions. How have you managed to stick together for so long through so much growth?
Yeah, so we started Sharesies around 2017, and there were 6 of us who started, which raises a few eyebrows because people often assume that there's kind of 1 or 2, and typically male, like working away in a garage somewhere was the stereotype. But for us, there are six of us, and we're from a range of different backgrounds who came together. And I think we all have different I guess specialist skills, but we really came together around this mission to create financial empowerment for everyone. And I think that is something that really brings us together. So we're 7 years in now, and we have continued working together all that time. And things we do, I think the first most important thing we did was almost immediately before we started working together, we set our values as a company. And we did that by getting together, talking about what type of company we were trying to build. And once we were clear on what we were trying to do, which was create this wealth app and change how wealth was grown and seen for people, it was really, well, how do we want to do that? And we went through, we said, these are the types of things we loved about places we worked. These are the things we'd want to avoid in building a business that we were a part of. And we kind of grouped them, and there's 3 kind of values raised to the top, which were about chasing remarkable, being in it together, and always caring. And those values still are the values we use today and have evolved, from a team of 6 of us to a team of 150. And I think one of the things that I love about, and I think has really being such a big founding team, what that's done is it's never been kind of about one person's idea being, like it's not about my idea or your idea. It's like you have to convince so many people from the get-go. The best idea is going to be the best idea. Like it's not kind of political in that way. You do have to, so we've always kind of operated without that ego, because I think sometimes in partnerships it can be, oh, mine or yours. But with a team, you kind of operate differently from the get-go. So yeah, we work hard at it and stay aligned, but I think all of us are kind of mission first, and then just have such a huge respect for each other and what we do and what we bring to the table, and especially when that's different.
Nice. It sounds more like an advantage really of having a large founding team. Maybe more people should. Obviously, it's more of a natural thing that happens, I suppose, as you come up with the idea. But setting values when you're a team of just 6 is one thing, but keeping them alive through a company of 150 is another. What are some of your biggest learnings on just being able to make your values like really float to the surface of people's everyday work lives?
Yeah, in places that I've worked in the past, values have kind of been sometimes like seen as a tick box exercise or this kind of aspiration. And I think part of them should be aspirational, but they should also feel true. And it should feel like something you can hold yourself to account for. And so for us, and we've learned that over time and embedding that as our team has grown, is spending a lot of time like teasing out what you mean by them and how you want them to show up, like by being quite descriptive about the types of behaviors that you would see if someone was chasing remarkable, for example, which is one of ours, or what in it together really means and what the spirit of that thing is, but also how you expect that to show up. So we do an induction when new people start, and we really talk through the history of our values, what we were meaning when we kind of put them together. We ask people to share examples of when they've seen that being brought to life. And then something we've evolved to do now is we do values champions. So every month people can nominate for someone who they've seen bring our values to life during that time, and then we have a monthly winner. And we also do that annually now as well. So that's just been a way of going like, actually, let's spot the behavior and reward and recognize the behavior we want to see where people have really brought those to life. But I always love it when people come up and say that they really do see the values playing out at Sharesies, and like that's so meaningful this far into a company where you're like, actually, this is really this is what we meant when we put this down on paper, and actually going, this is being interpreted in the way that we intended. Like, that's actually really hard to do. So, and it takes people wanting to do that as well. So I think it's a testament to the great team we've been able to build, and that people do really get behind those values.
Nice. I mean, one of the ways I'd definitely describe Sharesies as really authentic, having had the luxury of being sort of part of the early team in some capacity as you really went through that massive initial growth phase. What always stuck out to me was just like how authentic everyone was in terms of actually aligning internally with what Sharesies' mission was, and then also outwardly what you said you would do. And one of those things really comes back to that passion about empowering people financially. So, you know, with that in mind, I think that Sharesies probably has one of the best, you know, product market fits from an early stage startup, just like right out the gate. But obviously it took time to get there. And what was that real like aha moment where you're like, wow, we have like a really strong product here, and I think that, you know, we're really going to grow?
Yeah, so that first kind of aha moment when it really felt like we were onto something, I probably am not going to just say that it's one aha. Like, there's probably been ahas across our time. But I think the first one was, you know, and I'm from a product background, and I've worked in products at different stages, ones where you're really trying to get people to, when you've already built your product and you're trying to get people to adopt it, and you're trying to look at like, is something clicking here, or what is off? Is it that they don't know about it? Do they not understand it? Or is it just kind of wrong for what they need? And I think the real joy in getting to build something from scratch was that early setup work that you can put into it. So we did do 6 months of customer research after having the initial idea for Sharesies. And a big part of that was just going out, talking to people about how they felt about money, how they felt about investing, and like the stuff you don't really get to talk to about people very often, or we do now because Sharesies exists, and hopefully there's not as much stigma about talking about money. But at the time there really was. And so it really felt like you were getting to talk to people about something that they don't get a chance to talk about. And it's so aspirational, you know, this want to kind of be better with your money. And so once, like in those research interviews, there was just this moment of going like, this is big, like this is actually something people really care about, and we're helping them achieve something they really want. And I think if you can, so first is like, is the problem big enough that people are going to really care about this thing? And I think from those interviews and really connecting with people in those moments, that felt like big. And like, I definitely thought this is going to be really meaningful. So that was almost like problem aha. You're like, yes, cool, got the problem, and that's big enough. And then the solution wise, we did set up a wait list before we even launched our product, and just said who's interested about this. And we didn't have any money to put behind marketing or anything like that. We just started writing content around problems or opportunities around money. And in that time, we managed to get 6,000 people signed up to a wait list, which was huge really at the time. It meant that when we launched our product, we had 6,000 people who had told us that they care, that the solution, it fits the problem that they have. And so that was kind of an aha. Then there was other moments where it's like the first person that we didn't know personally signs up. You're like, does anyone know this person? And that was fun. But we kind of, there was this moment where it was like, if we had 10,000 people, we could then be a business at that point. And we hit that, I think, at our Christmas party of our first year, hit 10,000 people. And that was just a really cool moment. And it meant we're now at over 660,000. And that's just, so it's just continued to grow. But I think that felt like a moment where it was like, we're not going to have to go out and get other jobs now. Like once we hit 10,000, like that can be a business that sustains us. Obviously, our ambitions were way bigger than that, but that was kind of an aha.
Yeah, that's awesome. And 660,000 is actually an astronomical number to think about, which is great. So yeah, really, really good job. And no doubt there's plenty more that you want to do as well. As part of developing your product and going to market, I think one of the unique things with Sharesies is you were actually the first mover in the market, if I'm not mistaken. What do you think some of the advantages of being the first mover were?
Yeah, so when we launched in New Zealand, we were really the first mover. No one had really, there was an incumbent. If you were wanting to invest, you could do that, but not in a way where there wasn't any minimums. You still needed to put aside a bit of money to be able to get in. And so the barriers that we identified were that people were branded out, jargoned out, and priced out. So our solution was kind of countering the barriers that were stopping people who wanted to invest. I think it did make a difference because, so being that first mover meant that like this was something that people really cared about, getting ahead with their money and feeling like they were being really savvy. And at the time, there was a lot of media about how are people going to get ahead without being able to invest in property because it was too expensive. And I think by being the only one here, we were able to really match our our solution to that problem. And so we did get it was a way of like really connecting in. So I think that did help us. We were able to cut through at a moment where people the conversation was happening and we were a part of that conversation. And I think that allowed us to cut through. So I did think that helped us.
Nice.
In New Zealand. Yeah.
One of the things Sharesies has always done really well is tell like a really strong story, and that obviously aligns back to your mission. Did storytelling come naturally as part of your go-to-market, or was it something that you plan to do?
Yeah, so storytelling's always been something that's been really important to us and I think helped us on our journey. And I think, part of it could come from that we're all really driven about that mission first, and the mission around creating financial empowerment. And the way of getting there is going to be nuanced, and it's not going to be one solution over time. It's going to be constantly trying to move along that path. And so I think the story is important because the story is actually big. We're wanting to have this like really, really big impact. And where you're starting, and we had to start quite humble. Like our first product was 6 exchange traded funds on a platform. Like if you were just kind of going out and selling that, like I don't know how compelling that would be. And that's not really why we were doing it. We weren't doing it just for that. So our ambitions have always been greater than how we show up at that time. But it's about going like we're on this path and who's coming, and we're on this path and we're hoping that we can create this change all together. So I think that story has always been core because that's the future we're trying to create.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it made me think of something else that one thing Sharesies always had to do in order to be successful is that, as you mentioned, there wasn't really that foundation to actually go to market. There were alternatives, but nothing quite like Sharesies. And obviously you had to work with NZTech and more recently like over in Australia, and I'm sure now working with NZTech listed companies, KiwiSaver providers like banks and those types of things. How has it been trying to sort of get deals done on that side so that you can bring something to market?
I guess what we were bringing to market was so unique, and we've had to be able to offer what we offer where no minimum, that was really new, this idea that you can own a fraction of a share. And it did mean that we had to work within the industry and create relationships. We're heavily regulated, so we do need really strong relationships with our regulator. We work with partners along the way, as well as other providers. And I think people can kind of have a bit of a funny attitude around like what's competition, what's not competition, and are we going to work together? We kind of like to keep that pretty open. We kind of have this fundamental belief that most of the time, like people are better off working together about something, and especially if your missions align. And we're kind of not super sold on needing to own it all or do everything ourselves. I think there is a lot that we've done ourselves because that makes sense, and that means that we can deliver this product to market at a price point where people can afford and allow us to do it. But there's other areas that we do work with partners, and that's really important to us too.
One of the things, obviously, when you quit your job and you go out and start a startup is that you have to take a bunch of risks, and no doubt you're still taking risks almost every day, no doubt, risks that you think through and calculated risks. But what were a couple of the risks that you took as you built Sharesies that you really just felt like you were putting it on the line?
Yeah, the attitude towards risk, or how you take risk in business is super interesting. And one, obviously, you mentioned the having to leave your job. Like at that time, that didn't feel risky because we'd done this customer research, and it felt riskier not to because it felt like the opportunity was so big and that we had something quite unique to make a change here. And so I think if you just go to the idea that nothing is without risk, like and the one that I think would annoy me the most is the risk that comes from doing nothing. And so I think over time, we've been able to evolve our offering from just being investments or even just exchange traded funds or managed funds into listed companies, and being able to really do that. And I think some of the risks that we've taken that probably felt like this is a big step change or a big moment, where I guess deciding to directly, when we did start offering listed companies, deciding to actually become a participant in the New Zealand Stock Exchange. So that meant that we traded directly. And that just meant that, yes, it was a lot more kind of infrastructure and we had to build it, and there was a lot more cost involved, but it did also give us a lot more control over our costs. And also we saw that as being a really core part of our business, and that we did want to, that we could offer our product on top of that. I think the other ones are just deciding to also then expand our product offering. Like we could have been a great business, and we could still, on just the invest side, but our customer and our mission is so much bigger than that we did need to take these leaps into new product lines. So we've got like our save offering, launching a KiwiSaver, which is another regulated industry and a long licensing period for us. We decided to do quite a unique offering, like one that hadn't been done before, where you can actually select portions of your portfolio, and so you can actually pick your own KiwiSaver. And these moments where it's like, yes, we're choosing to add it, but we're also choosing to then innovate on it. And we often say we don't just innovate for the sake of it, like it does have to have a real compelling customer proposition. But it's definitely, there's times where it's like, it would just be easier if we just offered what was out there. But often the challenge is, actually people are quite apathetic when it comes to their KiwiSaver, because they're not really getting to see and make it theirs. And so we thought that actually that's compelling enough for us to put the work in to be able to make it so we can offer that. And we launched that late last year, and it's been growing really quickly since then. So that feels great, as well as then deciding to work with businesses directly and build tools for them. Feel like that was something that we could have not done, but it's just that whole path to our mission. What's the best path to that? And it means we do aspire for those things.
Yeah, nice. Definitely, it's crazy to think how much it's evolved over time as well, which has been really good. And one of the biggest leaps you took, I guess, in a sense, was expanding into the AU market. What were some of the learnings that you've had while doing business in Australia?
So 2 years ago, we did launch Sharesies in Australia, and that was we did our market research, realised that the problems that they were facing in New Zealand around not like the tools or ways that we can grow our wealth just needed some more opportunity and ways that broke that down. And so although like different and some nuances and subtleties in the Australian market, we did go over there. We've got a product for Australians and a team over there. So I think some lessons along that way have been to really, although it feels like there's some similarities between New Zealand and Australia, like I think we've got some great advice around like treat it like a completely new market. Look for, really understand, like don't see it as an extension of New Zealand or something like that. We've learned a lot about getting great people. I think great people make a huge difference. So we've got a fantastic team over there. And I mean, for us, a big challenge was that it was COVID and lockdown. So we weren't able to actually spend a lot of time in Australia when we were first setting up. And I think that just comes back to being open-minded about what your path is going to be like. And like any market or doing something new has bumps along the way, but I think that's where like having that great team, having great support, and just knowing that that opportunity or that mission is big enough and worth kind of overcoming those challenges. But yeah, we've been lucky to work with great partners over there and really starting to build quite a strong audience, which is cool.
Nice. That's really great. And just tell me a little bit about writing a book. What was that like?
Yeah, so we were able to write a book. It was kind of like quite an interesting experience, really. And for us, it was about saying understanding this world. Yes, you can create the product, but there's also this kind of lessons or things that go around how you are raised around money and the types of people giving you lessons. And so we tried to write the book that we would have been chuffed to get or help us kind of understand and unpick the world of investing. And so that was quite a cool experience. It was a lot around like taking those lessons that we've learned in our time and writing them down. So that way, hopefully all in one place, people can get an idea of how they can start to build the portfolio or the investment plan that's right for them.
Last question now. Sharesies has done a few capital raises over the years. What's your advice to founders that are looking to do a capital raise?
Yeah, I think your capital raise experience will be just as unique as your business. And I think it comes back to like, there are so many different ways to raise money, and the way that you do it will be what's right for you. So I think like look at, what do you actually need? Like, why are you raising? How much you need? What's it for? And then kind of get a structure of like, what you're needing from your capital raise. And then I think that also helps, for us, our mission was so ambitious, and it meant that we needed shareholders that were like in it for the long haul, could really see the potential in that big idea. So in our investment rounds and the people who have backed us over the years, they are, really bought into that overall strategic vision. They've helped us along the way. So they are people that pitch in and can share their insights or their connections. And I think that really helps. So if there's any better together opportunities where you say, actually, our business would be better by having this type of investor, like we've had strategic investment from companies before, as well as people who like from in the industry, as well as iwi investments. So I think that's the thing. It's look for, a bit about what you're wanting to get and why you're doing a raise, what's it for, and then who your ideal shareholders would be and who you want on this journey with you.
Yeah, nice. Do you think that it's harder to raise capital, at the moment than it was for you a couple of years ago?
I think people will always say it's hard to raise the money. Yeah, I think the same things apply. I think there's money around for great ideas that people can really get behind and understand. So I think a lot of it is just like finding your people, but also telling a really compelling, like bringing what's great about your business or your idea or your making sure that that's front and center and that you've thought about all the things you need to think about.
Yeah. What's the best way to find your people in terms of investor? What's some of the networking and introductions you managed to get, or where can you find your people, I guess would be the question. Yeah,
there are so many groups out there to try and find people to raise money from. And I think the investor community is very broad, but it's also quite connected. So we were able to work with some of the like venture funds, like Icehouse, and things like that. So there's all the like angel investing groups, but then as well, like if there's people from your industry that you think, like the high net worth group, where people might have come from your industry and have a real understanding of your problem space or opportunity. I think that's another thing of like who would actually know a lot. And then maybe if there's anyone in that space or that background. The other one is strategic. I think look for, are there companies in your space that may want to put a bit of their money aside, and is there like a collaboration opportunity in the future that they might see? I think that is also an interesting thing to explore.
Nice. That's a really, really good answer. Hey, great to catch up, and yeah, appreciate your time.